so glorious. You are glorious. You are so glorious. You are glorious. You are so glorious. You are glorious. You are so glorious. Every eye will see, earth and heaven meet, the nations at your feet. Glorious, glorious. You are glorious. You are glorious. You are glorious. You are so glorious. Be lifted high, be lifted high, for your glory, be lifted high, be lifted high, be lifted high, for your glory, be lifted high. You're the King of all the ages. You're the author of salvation. You're the reason why we're singing for your glory. Lord, release the sound of heaven. Let it rise in You're the King. You're the King of all the ages. You're the author of salvation. You're the reason why we're singing for your glory. Lord, release the sound of heaven. Let it rise in every nation. We will join the anthem singing for you're the everlasting. You're the everlasting Father. You're the all-consuming fire. You're the reason why we're living for your glory. We will be the generation calling down the rain of heaven. We will join the anthem singing for your glory. Be lifted high for your glory. Be lifted high. Be lifted high. Be lifted high for your glory. Be lifted high. Oh Lord, we lift your name, Jesus. Be exalted. What have I in this life but the love in your eyes? This empty world will one day fade. Only your truth will remain. Jesus, all I have is you. You're the hope I'm holding to. I might weep, but still my faith rests in you. As the heavens hold the skies, it's your hand that holds my life, and your love will lead me on when all the heavens hold the skies, it's your hand that holds my life, and your love will lead me on. All else is gone. When all else is gone. When all else is gone. As the heavens hold the skies, it's your hand that holds my life, and your love will lead me on when all else is gone. When all else is gone. As the band continues to play, just stay in that place. There's so many words that we've sung this morning, so much truth. It really resonates. Just stay in that place. God's presence is resting on a few of you already this morning. Just enjoy it. Be refreshed, be comforted. It feels so good just to meet with God in a very real way. God, we just really, really thank you for your presence this morning. There's been a tenderness to the atmosphere this morning, a rawness. Just rest in his presence if that's you. Feels good to worship, doesn't it? You may take your seats when you're ready. Thanks, guys. That was great. Thank you. So if you missed at the start, my name is Dave. I have the privilege of being one of the assistant pastors here. It's really, really good to see you. As I said earlier, there'll be just a short period of notices just in terms of what's going on in the life of the church and that sort of thing. But before I do, I just want to remind people, this is the part of the service where we look to our giving and the rhythm of our life and our tithing that really is an extension of our worship. So if you haven't thought about giving for a while, there are leaflets as a giving station just to the left of me. Please just take one as you're walking away. Think about how much of your life how much of your tithes you want to give. Really sort of think it through and be intentional about your giving. It's really good. And in terms of what's coming up in the life of the church, we do have the culture lunch next Sunday. So the countdown is almost there. I know it's been in the diary for most of you for a while because it involves food. Now, The important thing to stress is we've got so many great cultures in our church, and we really want to just celebrate that. And the great thing, or a good thing to do, or through that, is really to get everybody that wants to bring a dish along, share a meal together. And I really just want to encourage as many people as we can to be at that. It's going to be great just to share in community, just to not rush the end of church. Because you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay here next Sunday till 3 o'clock if you really want to. So please do come along to that. I'm really looking forward to it. There's going to be some great food. And for those of you that are in my small group, we've got the all-age football after that. So it'd be a great opportunity to run around and burn all those calories off, which would be absolutely brilliant. And it's a lovely, lovely little segue to just remind you all that small groups are launching. So some launched last week, some will launch this week. There is still an opportunity to sign up, so please look at the website, look at the Facebook page. There are links on there. And again, it's just a great opportunity to meet people, forge relationships, and just do church outside of Sunday. And I guarantee you will get lots from that. So on that note, the notices are done. Children, we are about to go into the next bit of the service. So if we've got kids up to 11, so yes, if that's you, you're free to get up from your seat and walk out that way. And Daniel, I think we're good. So if you're left...
As you can see, I'm tired. So I decided I'm going to sit down and do this. Why should I be standing and you guys all be sitting? No, we're going to be doing a little... over the next sort of 6 weeks, sporadically, we're going to be having a few of these sessions, just sort of in conversation, just looking at how we do life in our journey with God and our journey of faith. If you're like me, sometimes it feels like sort of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward. Sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. I can see you all doing the maths right now. But Paul said in the New Testament that we press on to the goal which Jesus has set for us. And that's not running with wind in our hair and people sort of shouting and throwing glitter and confetti and giving us cups of Lucozade as we go. The word is pressing in, pressing on. And that speaks of pushing in. And yeah, the journey of faith, it comes with its challenges. It comes with its doubts. And one of the things we love doing is why we do the walk across the room. We try and encourage you to do that as a lifestyle. Is there are so many stories around. There are so many people around. There's so much wisdom around. People going through the same things that we sort of don't realize. And we thought it'd be a great opportunity just to take a moment and just to utilize some of that. Sorry, I've got my back to you. How rude of me. So I'll move around a little bit. Is that better? Not rude? Okay. So we thought it would just be a lovely sort of time just in a slightly more informal environment, because sometimes that's when the nuggets and the gems sort of come out. So we're going to be looking at the journey of faith through different filters as we do it. And this week we're going to be looking at it through the filter of ministry. So I have with me Anne. She pastored the Stevenage Vineyard. Some of you may know that. Some of you may not know that. I'll introduce yourself in a second. Along with she pastored the church along with Peter, but not this Peter. Peter pastored the Cambridge Vineyard along with his then wife Alison, a beautiful lady who sadly passed away a couple of years ago, and you did that for quite some time as well. So just to give the chance to the PA guys to do a little sound check, as well as introduce yourself, why don't you just sort of introduce yourself, say how long you pastored your respective churches for, and maybe your favourite flavour of ice cream. Let's go there.
Well, my favourite flavour of ice cream is chocolate, preferably triple chocolate. Okay. I'm a chocoholic, as my family will know. We planted and pastored the Stevenage Vineyard for 19 years, I think it was, when we passed it on to capable hands.
Hi, so I'm Peter Bird, and as Daniel said, I pastored Cambridge Vineyard with my wife, Alison. Prior to that, we had planted a church in Birmingham. We were trying to reach out to people who had still got a faith, but had given up on church. And then prior to that, I was an associate pastor at Birmingham Vineyard. And prior to that, I was a maths teacher. And anything but chocolate.
Oh, I'm not sure I could trust anything you're saying now. No, anything but chocolate. So you both pastored churches, you both planted churches. That's no mean feat. You don't go into that sort of lightly. In a nutshell, what was your process in God leading you to take that first step? Anne, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say that it was never on our radar to plant a church. It was never something that we thought about or planned for or even knew much about. So having said that, in 1994, we found ourselves both having gone through a very difficult church experience. And is it me crackling or not? Okay. And we were both pretty burnt out and pretty disillusioned with church. Peter had said to God, Jesus, I love you, but your church is something else. And he vowed never, ever to volunteer for anything ever again. That he would only ever do what he got specifically asked to do. I found myself in a very emotional, broken state. I spent a lot of time crying and mourning over the things that were lost. And the present situation we found ourselves in. And I remember reading at the time Psalm 137, where it says, by the rivers of Babylon, I sat down and I wept when I remembered Zion. And it goes on to say, how can I sing a new song in a strange land? And that was me. I'm a crier. I spent a lot of time crying. And I remember one morning specifically when the boys had gone to school and Peter had gone to work. And I was in our bedroom just crying before the Lord. And you know, sometimes you don't need words to pray. Sometimes your tears are prayers. And as I was just pouring my heart out to God, God clearly spoke to me. I remember it to this day. And he said to me, will you give up everything to follow me? And I said to him, Lord, you know that I will. And in that instant, my spirit lifted, and I knew that God had spoken to me and he'd heard my prayers. And as I got up and as I looked out of our bedroom window, God said to me, I have called you to plant a church. And I knew that that's what we were going to do. It was something that I felt I couldn't share with Peter at the time because of, and he's given me permission to say this, because of the state that he was in. And so I did what Mary did. I hid those things in my heart. And actually 4 years later, in 1998, we planted a church. And it's a long story, so I won't go into it. But I have to say that during those 4 years, never once did we volunteer for any single thing. But we only kept being asked to do things. And we just kept saying yes to Jesus.
Peter, yeah. So you both planted churches. What was in a nutshell? What was the process in God leading you to take that first step into planting a church?
Okay, so the first 10 years of my life, I didn't know anything about the Spirit, and so once we had a new vicar at the church I was at, and he really challenged us. And the long and the short of it was, I had the most incredible experience of the Spirit, as did my wife. And from then on, I just wanted to volunteer for anything and everything. And 94 was obviously the year, because I found myself on the floor in Toronto Vineyard, and it was there that God somehow spoke to me. I had no idea how it occurred. I couldn't tell you now, but I sort of got up knowing that that's what I had to do. We had to become a pastor. And so I came back to Birmingham and told the pastor that, and he said, well, let's leave it for 3 months and see how you feel then, because I hadn't mentioned it before then. So that, I thought it was a really wise thing for him to say. And so 3 months later, I went back and said, I still want to be a pastor. And so that occurred. I went on staff there. And from there, God really then spoke in lots of odd ways. And I feel that, if God's going to call you to do something outside your normal sort of run of life, like planting a church, I think he's going to speak to you powerfully and not just not just once, he'll confirm it in various ways. And so for me, I saw a sign on a rotten church, a rotten seat, and I can't for the life of me remember what it said now. I was out on a walk and there was this broken down seat, but the plaque was still there, and it seemed to me to be saying, this is what I should be doing. And then again, I was working in various schools then, and I was put in a waiting room at a school one day, and there, over the wall, was endless repeats of their motto. And it said something like, "In God we trust." It's some Latin thing, I can't remember what it was. But again, I felt, just put your trust in God and just go for it. And then again, a third time, God spoke to me through a passage in the Bible. And so I think that's how it happened for me. And I think that's what I really learned from it, If God's going to get you to do something massive, he's going to speak to you in many ways, and very clearly.
It sounds like both of you had some quite noticeable experiences where God put that inside of you, and you knew that's where and what you were supposed to be doing. I guess some of that is because there are challenges that come, there are sort of difficulties that come, and it's like the Bible says, were all the stories and experiences and conversations to be contained, there would not be room enough for them. I guess maybe it feels like that. It does feel like that, pastoring a church. What were some of your challenges, sort of biggest trials, and how did you sort of navigate those? Because they do come, and it's not easy. Who wants to take that?
I think for me that ministry is a very lonely place. It's a lonely walk often because, nobody is walking in your shoes when you're trying to plant a church and grow a church and lead a church. For me, another challenge was, I'm going to be honest here, it's called sheep bite. Sheep bite and it hurts. And sometimes it's hard to contain and deal with those feelings when you've been hurt or misunderstood or mistrusted about something. And you can't look to other people for encouragement. They just don't give it. And you have to do what David did in the Bible. It said when he was at Ziklag and the people turned bitter in spirit towards him and they wanted to stone him, it says that he encouraged himself in the Lord. And I think when times are difficult, we have to encourage ourselves in the Lord. And that's not just ministry, that's just daily life. You have to encourage yourself in Jesus. And for me personally, I always get great encouragement through worship. When I worship, God becomes so much bigger than the problem that I find myself in. And you hold on to the promises of the Bible that he's given you over the years. And I also had a good friend that I could share with, somebody that was also a senior pastor, that I could go to and talk with in times of deep distress. And she didn't mind if I cried into my pastor, and I didn't mind if she cried into her salad. But, it's good to share a burden. It's good to share one another's burdens. And so that's how I personally navigated some of the difficult times in ministry that I experienced.
So for me, I think the biggest challenge was when my grandmother died, my father died, three of my children left within 3 or 4 months, and my whole world collapsed, and I was depressed. I woke up one morning and thought, I can't cope anymore. I just can't cope. And I absolutely could not go on. And it was difficult facing people after that because there's a taboo about depression. How can a Christian be depressed, when we've got so much, when God is so good to us? How can you be depressed? But I was in pieces. And it went on for about just under 6 months. And having to sort of humble myself, I suppose. It was a big church, and so probably 400 people. And my role in that church was very much the pastoral side of things. And so I'd made myself known to just about everybody. And so they all knew when I wasn't there, and they could all see when I was miserable. Sorry. And yet, everybody expects you to be strong when you're a pastor. So that was certainly my biggest challenge. How did I get through it? Well, first of all, my wife and I led together. In the vineyard, it's like joint leadership. It's not the man is the pastor. You lead as a couple. And obviously for Daniel and Val, that would have been the case. And as he lost Val, I lost Alison. And then it becomes really difficult, I found. But anyway, at that time, I was married to Alison. And that was a really important part of my coming through it, that I was able to just let her take the pressure. So I think the first thing I would say was I relied on other people. So there was my wife and then other friends. And it's interesting, you know who your good friends are when they will come round and visit you when you've really not much fun to be with. And there were a number who were like that. And so I just really relied on them. If I've learned one thing from that experience, it would be that I need to spend more time in prayer. And at that time, I found it really hard. I remember John Wimber talked about how, on occasions, his prayers just dribbled down his chin. And I felt that. But I think you just have to press on. Like Daniel was saying, you just have to do it anyway.
It's life, isn't it? It's whether ministry or just living, getting up in the morning. It's life, and you carry those scars, sheep biting, or just dealing with bereavement or depression or that sort of thing. It's something that happens to us all, and you get at work sort of regardless. And interesting, there's a similarity there in terms of you both saying. What do they say? A problem shared is a problem halved, and is that a proverb or a saying? I don't know. But there's a truth in that. There's something important in that, which is why we do sort of small groups and try and provide that opportunity. But come back to you, Peter. I mean, obviously having someone else to share the load with, and but also personally, I mean, in the face of all that, often people ask me, do you still have a faith, having been through what you've been through? How do you keep going? Surely you would have chucked it in by now. Almost like a disbelief about why. This is a hard question. This is the immortal question. But what was it that kept you going? What was it that kept you waking up in the morning and pressing in and pushing, even when you didn't want to? Personally, that's a big but a simple question. Sorry.
I think for me it's easier to answer that question with regard to bereavement and having lost my wife. Because what I've found in the last couple of years is that at the time, I didn't feel like pressing on. I didn't find I could pray easily. I didn't feel I could push on with life or anything else. But I did keep going to church and just keep going through the motions. And I think, looking back, that's what I did, just knowing that God is there, just holding on to the faith I have. And, having experienced it once through the depression, knowing that God is there, even though you don't feel he's there. Somehow I think the answer is developing habits before you get into that situation so that you know that you just keep on doing those things which you've developed as habits earlier on in your life.
I love that quote about prayers dribbling down your chin. Feels like so many times in my life I've had to wipe my chin away. And how about you? And what sort of kept you going in the morning?
There are often very difficult times in life, you know. Life throws you a curveball that you're not expecting. It hits you between the eyes, and you have no control over it or at all. And it to me, one of those occasions was obviously when Val got sick. And they call it the dark night of the soul, I think is what they call it. And you have to just keep going, don't you? One step at a time. Put one step at a time. Just pure grit, really. You keep continuing when your heart is breaking inside. And I think, you know, Peter's right. You just have to keep digging deep and hanging on to those things, those disciplines that you've actually probably built your life on, you know, the prayer, the worship, the hanging on to the promises of God. And you just keep going through sheer grit. And you stay connected with the body, you stay connected with people. And you draw very closely on him, I think.
Can I quote Wimber again? Wimber also said at one point, never doubt in the darkness what you've learnt in the light. If you've learnt something when life's going well, don't start to doubt it when life gets difficult.
And I have to say that there is great grace for those seasons in life, you know, those dark nights of the soul. There is grace. There is much grace, and there is much comfort in his arms. And those dark nights, they do turn to day. Those tears, they do turn to joy. Mourning does turn to dancing. And you come out again, and when it's past, you breathe that fresh air of his presence that you didn't experience during those dark times.
Say that quote again, Peter, the Wimber quote, that don't doubt in the darkness.
Yeah, don't doubt in the darkness what you've heard in the light.
Yeah.
So I suppose he was particularly talking about when you've heard God's voice leading you, reassuring you or whatever, when times have been okay, when times have been good, then don't start to doubt that when it gets difficult.
Amazing. Good stop right there. A lot of that speaks to character, that speaks to things you've done, a relationship with Jesus sort of beforehand and sort of holding on, and I know that will sort of resonate with a lot of us. But obviously, also, as in life and when leading a church, sometimes being able to hear God it's a vital, it's essential. And sometimes you get that clear message at the beginning of when you guys planted the church. Sometimes it feels foggy and fuzzy, and I think sometimes there's the perception that we have a hotline to God and just pick up the red phone and God gives you the next instructions for the week, and it's not like that, is it? It's leading a church and having responsibility for the people around you. How did God, and even now, how does God speak to you? And how do you sort of listen to God? How often does he speak to you? I don't know. Talk a bit more about that. Anne, why don't you...
Oh, gosh, that's a big question. Okay, so how does God speak to me? Well, he obviously speaks through the Bible. And, you know, we all know that. He speaks to me through people, you know, listening to the word, you know, listening to people talk, just fellowshipping, encouraging, walking along the way. Somebody will just drop something and it will just think, oh, yeah, God, yeah, that's how I do that. That's an answer to my question. He's spoken to me in times past through dreams, but mainly he speaks to me, I think, in my Noah, which is deep down inside, you know, that still small voice that leads me day by day. It's hard to put into words, but you know when God speaks to you. It's deep down inside of you. And I have to say that when he speaks to you, he always speaks in peace, and it's never in confusion. God is not the author of confusion. So if you're confused, then you need just to wait for God just to speak deep inside of you in that still small voice and bring you to peace. So many ways and different situations, God has spoken in different ways to me.
When Jesus first came, he said, I didn't come to condemn the world, but to save it. And I think that's very true, what Anne says, that he doesn't come in criticism. So just to add that, sorry. But for me, I think he speaks in two main ways. Certainly, sometimes I just feel compelled to speak, to do something. And I think it's important that when that happens, and you do manage to step out and do something or follow what you feel God has said, that you really reflect on that and you think, well, what did that feel like? So I think there is an element of learning what God's voice sounds like, that the more you act on what you feel is God's voice, the more confident you would be in hearing the future and stepping out. So that's the first thing I would say. But secondly, yeah, through the Bible. You know, when I've been unsure about what to do, or even if I'm keen to do something and just need some confirmation, my way of doing things would be to say, God, I need some guidance here. I need some comfort here. I need this here, or whatever. I'm going to read my Bible, so please just speak to me through it. I talked about going to Toronto in 1994. A friend said to me, why don't we go to Toronto? Because, you know, the Spirit was falling there and everybody in the world wanted to be there. You know, there was and yeah, thank you, I couldn't think of the word. An outpouring of the Spirit going on there. And so this friend said, why don't we go during the summer holidays? And I thought, yeah, let's do that. And so I said to my wife, you know, Paul's asked me, what do you think? And she said, well, it'd better be God if you're going to go and leave me with 4 children to look after during the summer holidays. So I said, I'll go and read my Bible. So I went... I went into the garden. I said, God, I'm going to need you to speak to me through the Bible. Tell me that I should go to Toronto. And I thought, that's a challenge. How is he going to say that through the Bible? So I read, it was Hebrews 3, and there's a very confusing verse in there which says, whilst it is today. And I thought, what's that about? So I was reading my study Bible. So I looked at the notes down at the bottom, and it said, this is the day of the Lord's favor. It will not last forever. And so I thought, as much as God could say, go to Toronto through the Bible, I thought that was it. So I went to Toronto, and that's where he spoke to me about being a pastor.
Yeah. God does talk if we're willing to relax. Sometimes we want the answer right now, don't we? But if we wait and have patience, which is hard, God does talk, and God is gracious and faithful. And yeah, I've heard just as much through God in the silence as I have through the scriptures and so on. You guys have said some fantastic stuff. I'm sure there's lots of things that people will take away this morning. This is one of those cliche sort of questions about looking to wrap it up into a sort of profound little nugget that we can all sort of take away. What do you wish you would have known before you started that you would love to be able to pass on to all of these guys here, maybe at the beginning of their journey of faith, or right in the middle, or struggling or not? If there's one or two, we'll let you have that. What things that you wish you would have known at the beginning that you would love someone to take away now, to save us a lot of heartache and stress and help us learn from your mistakes?
I wished that somebody had said to me, it's not about you. It's all about him. I wish somebody had said to me, Anne, all you need to do is be a good and faithful servant and keep saying yes to the master. And finally, I wish somebody had said to me that the kingdom of God is far more robust than we give it credit for. Jesus said that he will build his church, and if we lift him up, he will draw people to himself. That was 3, sorry.
As many as you want.
Very good. Yeah. I remember being at a conference for pastors, and the guy said, just accept you're never going to be the most intelligent person in your church. I didn't have any problem with that. Apart from anything else, I was at Cambridge, and so... But I think what that said to me was, you're not going to be the most gifted either. You know, just your job is to enable others to excel in their gifts, to facilitate others' gifting. I'd always been a person who wanted to work as in a team rather than to be a person who's at the front on their own. That was never me. And so really, I suppose that was music to my ears. And I think if someone had just encouraged me in that, I think that would have helped me enormously. It's okay. You don't have to do everything. You know, we are a body. Everybody has their own gifting. God gives as he sees fit the gifts of the Spirit. And so every one of us here has a gift from God and can work for God. And I'm nothing special, and neither is any other pastor. And so I think that's really important. And the other thing I think I would say is I wish I'd prayed more.
Great. Can we give these guys a round of applause? Yeah. Yeah, you never know what's in the heart of someone. Or the journeys are multiplied here throughout the room and at home as well. We all go through these things. These are all journeys of faith that we all sort of take. Let's just take a moment. There's been a lot of really rich stuff here that's been said this morning. And I'd encourage you to go back and listen to that. If you're online, go back and listen to it and just remind yourself of some of these stuff, because these are eternal truths. They're kingdom truths, and they're hard truths to learn and to remember. It's part of that pressing in. You know, it's not a cakewalk. We know that life and faith is not a cakewalk, but it's at the end where all the confetti and the cheering is, and that's hard. We run the race to finish it. It's not always an easy race. So let's just take a moment. Let's just invite the presence of God. If God drops anything on your heart as we're sort of waiting on him, feel free to interject. But let's just take a moment wherever we are, wherever we're sitting this morning. Okay. Holy Spirit, when you come, as we navigate this journey of life with you, as we struggle, as we have victories, as we hear your voice, as we don't know where you are, Lord. You're always here, Jesus. We ask you to come. We invite your presence. And for those who are struggling, God, for whatever reason, we just ask that you would just pour out the rich honey of your presence. That in the silence, God, we would be reassured that you are there. Come, Lord.
I see a picture of an avenue between people, not trees. And banked up on both sides are endless witnesses. The Bible tells us that there's a cloud of witnesses that is encouraging us and cheering us on. And I am walking up that avenue with Jesus. I think that's a picture for every one of us, and particularly for those who need encouragement this morning. Jesus leads us on, but there's a whole cloud of witnesses that has been before us who wants to encourage us on our journey.
just feel that there may be some of us here that are experiencing the dark night of the soul, where everything seems a little bit confused and dark, and you don't know whether God is there or not there. But I just feel to say to you that he is there, that even when we can't feel him or see him, he is there because he can't deny himself. And that you will come into a new season of life. And that new season will be brighter, better, lighter than you've ever experienced before. So don't give up in the journey. Don't give up during the hard times, but keep on pressing on.
Come, Lord. I think a lot of what has been said, some of the pictures this morning have resonated with a lot of us here. I would encourage you to take that away, to chew on that. God is working. God is encouraging as well this morning. You know, it's good to talk about these things because we all experience it, but just to know that there is hope. It doesn't last. And I think God is reminding us of that as well in this journey of faith that we're on. So Lord bless you and keep you. Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord give you peace and give that away this week. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for listening. I'll go let you go warm up in a sec. I do know it's cold in here. We are aware we're sort of in contact with the school about trying to resolve it. Thank you for sort of hanging in there. Don't forget, next week we have inflatables and slides, a soft play for the kids. So invite people, bring people along, bring your food as well. And it'd be lovely just to spend time with each other and just to hang out here. So don't rush off. Say hello to the person next to you or behind you or in front of you, especially if you don't know them. And God bless you. We'll see you next week. And one final round of applause. Thank you so much for this morning. Yeah.